Så tror jeg, vi er ved at være klar til dagens sidste indslag. Jeg håber, I alle sammen har haft en rigtig god dag. Jeg har i hvert fald været med i rigtig mange spændende, eller hørt mange spændende indlæg, og vi har haft gode snakke. Nu skal vi så høre fra Distinguished University Professor emeritus Vincent Tinto. Og jeg har lovet ham, at jeg ikke vil sige særlig meget, for det skal være kort, siger han. Men kort fortalt, så vil jeg sige, at Vincent Tinto har forsket i frafald fra første års universitetsstuderende i cirka 40 år. Og talt i mange år om fastholdelsesvejledning og hvad man kunne gøre for at fastholde elever. Og har så sidenhen inden for de sidste 10 år måske begyndt at skrive mere om det her med sådan vedholdenhed i stedet for. Og som I kan se på den titel, han har givet sit oplæg i dag, så handler det altså om Through the Eyes of the Student, eller ja, det står heroppe, Lessons Learned from the United States. Og det er det, han vil bruge tid på at tale om i dag. Så har jeg lovet at sige til jer indledningsvis, at han lige har skrevet et kapitel til en bog, som udkommer nu her lige om lidt, som går lidt mere i dybden i forhold til de pointer, som han præsenterer i dag, altså hvor han udfolder teori og så videre. Og hvis der er nogen, der er interesseret i at få det kapitel, så kan man skrive til mig, og så formidler jeg kontakten, og så sender han gerne det til jer. And that was the Danish introduction.
Yeah.
We're very, very honored that you said yes to come and talk to us today, and we've really been looking forward to hearing you telling about your perspective. So I won't say any more, except welcome, and the stage is yours.
Hello. Well, I better stop now because I won't get applause later. I'll stop now. Thank you very much for having me. I should just point out that it is almost by accident that Christina and her colleagues and I have run across each other. We've been working separately. But like you in Denmark, we also are concerned about our dropout rate, especially among low income, in our case, underserved students of color. And have been trying to understand, as you have, the decision-making process that leads them to that conclusion that they would leave or stay. And we've been doing a lot of research on that, and we've been doing some research on that. And it's interesting that we read each other's work, and lo and behold, we were looking at the same issues in very much the same way. And it's always a pleasure to do that, because I learned by looking at how you understand the problem, given your structure, things that I didn't think of. And I hope my presentation about how we in the United States address this issue might also give you some ideas about how you might think about the situation you face. I say that because I'm not here to tell you what to do. I don't like playing the ugly American role, if you know what I mean. I'm here simply to share with you what we've learned in the hope that it might be useful to you. Now, let me just point out that you have my email address. I think you said that, Bettina. Yeah. And you should always be free to email me anytime. I always answer my email if you have an easy question. Okay? No, seriously, I mean that seriously, because we all learn better together. And the conversations we construct is the way we all learn more richly and deeply. Okay, so let me start by talking about the lessons we have learned. We have, like you, spent a number of years looking at the same question. And when you go through all that research and all the practice and all the policies, we learn certain key lessons, I think, frame how we've come to think about this issue. First, student motivation is the foundation upon which student success is built. It's that simple. Students who want to stay, who want to complete a degree, are more likely to do so even when challenges arise. Conversely, even those who really do not want to finish, there's a little more you can do for them despite all the efforts you make if they're not motivated. So motivation is the key. You know, and it's interesting that that's the conclusion we reach. That's why I do research on the obvious, you see. But that's what it is. So the question then is, how do we understand motivation? Another key issue is, as was pointed out by the first presentation, that motivation is not fixed, it changes. It is what we say malleable, like clay is malleable. It can increase, it can decrease. And it's typically reflective of the early experiences of students on campus. Now, we have talked about the first year and the first semester. For you, it might be the first onboarding experience in a college. But those early experiences are very critical in framing the direction in which motivation will go. And finally, which is a key point in my title, to understand how that motivation is framed, you have to look at the issue not through your eyes, but the eyes of the students you serve. You have to hear their voices and understand what they're trying to tell you, because they will, in effect, tell you about the things that affect their motivation. And that's what the research you've been doing. Right? So those are the issues we've learned. And they're not surprising, but that's what we've come to understand. The challenge, of course, is learning how to listen to our students, how to draw from them findings that matter versus that which is idiosyncratic. Right? But that's always been a challenge. Okay, so what have we learned? When you look at student experiences and you listen to how they talk about it, you learn, as it's already been pointed out, there's certain key factors that the college can do to affect their motivation. Now, let me repeat that. There are many things that affect motivation. Often, as you know, they're outside the college. Emergencies, family life, work, that literally pull people away from college. But we discover that people who are motivated, even though they may be pulled away from the college, when those demands lessen, they're more likely to come back. Right? Right? So, it's the student goals. And I'll go over each of these in turn. Self-efficacy, their sense of belonging, and their perception of the relevance of their studies. And of course, you understand that given the fields you work in. Now, that's why you have this so-called complex model that you already saw. It's simply a graphic description of how these factors relate to each other. There's no need to write that down. It's just, us researchers like to have conceptual models. It sounds so impressive. It makes me believe that it's something more complex than the obvious. Okay, so that's what the model looks like. So what are the factors? What are the things colleges can do? Well, what are they first? It's the issue of goal. Oh, down boy. Goals. Oh, what happened here? Go back. Go back. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, there we go. Now, goals affect motivation in serious ways. Not all student goals call for completion. In fact, one of the cases you have that Christina told you about, I think it's Katya, maybe? She was pretty much motivated, and all of a sudden, it went down, and she left. Now, in this case, it may have been a family situation. But some students, in fact, she wanted to transfer to another vet program. So you may say her real goal was not completion in that program, but another program. In the United States, we have what's called transferring. You have that too in your university system. Students will start in one university, but they really want to get into another one in which they could not get admitted first. Because it's saying it's always easier to get admitted in the second year and not the first year. So the institution sees that as dropout. The student doesn't see it that way. So the perspective is different. But also, not all students hold their goals strongly. Some students might say, yeah, I want to get a college degree, but if not, I can do something else, like play in a band. Oh. And those whose commitments are weak to the goal, even the smallest turbulence, like navigating an ocean, can drive the boat off to the rocks. So the stronger the commitment to that goal, the more likely they'll try to persist. But more importantly, as you know, many students are not clear about their goals. They're not certain what they want to do. In the United States, at least, it's estimated that nearly half of all four-year college students, the four-year colleges and universities, begin unsure of themselves. Nearly half. And in fact, more students change majors more than once in our college system. Now, in your case, to change majors in a vet means changing a program, but they change within the university. So we are just as much concerned about this question of lack of clarity of goals. And that's why we have a range of things we've been doing to try to clarify student goals. One is helping them understand how to think about goals. This is self-knowledge. What is it I'm really interested in? How do I understand myself? And of course, we have these are called Occupational Interest Inventories. They administer, which allow you to not talk about the job you want, but what are your interests, and then match your interests to what industries or positions require that sort of interest. So we have that. We talk about developing self-knowledge, developing the knowledge of what occupational choices you have, and which of them match your interest. It's called Occupational Interest Inventory. Do you have something like that in your colleges, I assume? Do you? Maybe not. But that's what we use. In fact, we are very intentional about that. That when you come into the university and you're unclear about yourself, I won't say we require, but almost require that you go through that process. What we use is what's called the opt-in versus opt-out technique. You know that language? That you tell a student, the opt-in is, we have this program to help you pick college. Would you like to do it, yes or no? And certain people will pick yes. But if you say to the student, almost all our students take this program. You can opt out if you want. It turns out more people end up taking the program. Yeah. That's how we make it obligatory. Okay? So we mean that. But also, we work on programs designed specifically to help people make majors. So we have what's called the first-year seminars, because we think of the first year as constructed of 2 terms. The first year is a first semester, the second is a second semester. And often in the very first semester, we have programs, sometimes called seminars, sometimes called career counseling programs, that are specifically designed to help those students go through the process of developing self-knowledge, so forth, so on. But more importantly, what's happening recently, we're developing what's called meta majors. Has anyone ever heard that term before? Meta majors. I'll describe it. Let's say I start a university, and I say stuff, I'm interested in engineering, but I don't know what type of engineering would really fit my interest. In that case, in the first semester, I don't know how it would work out in your program, maybe the first 3 weeks, you have a program where they're exposed to different forms of engineering. And then after that period, then you make a choice. So that you allow people to look at a larger major called engineering, and within that, you help them make the choice of engineering. And we discovered that ends up making more effective and realistic choices than asking them at the outset, electrical, mechanical, aerospace. Yeah. I wish I had that. I spent 7 years studying for a doctorate in physics, and I dropped out. That's another story. So we have that, and that's another way we try to address the challenge of asking students too early to make a choice. Because especially when you're dealing with we call the traditional age population, 18 to 21, a lot of these students have no real experience. They have no way of judging what they really like and do not like. So we're trying to address that, except playing video games. They know that. Okay. So that's how we think about student goals. And again, the clearer the goal is, the more certain the person is of the correctness of their goal, the more likely they'll strongly hold it. And that promotes motivation. Because they see, the fact is, they're very simple. Why am I going to the college if I don't know what I want to do with it? It's that basic. So we try to give them the reason if they're not clear about that. Second, self-efficacy. Now, self-efficacy, you know this term, but it means basically your belief in your capacity to succeed at a given task or in a given situation. But it's important that this is not fixed, it's not inherited. It's something that you don't get it in your genetic makeup. It's something you learn from experience. But It's also often located with a specific task. For example, I work with a lot of low-income students. They'll tell me, I can't negotiate this university, but I have no trouble negotiating my community neighborhood. So it's often situation and task specific. But in the case of the college, it's their belief they can succeed in the college, academically or socially. Now, that doesn't matter because a lot of students come to the college given their prior experience. And again, I'm talking primarily about low-income, first-generation students, often, in our case, underrepresented students of color. They typically so poor, their education is so poor, their preparation so poor, and they've been exposed so often to failure. They come to internalize that failure in the way they think about their capacity. And it's important for us to figure out how to change their beliefs about what is possible. One simple thing is that you have to be clear about high expectations. Or the saying is, no one rises to low expectations. And it's very important to understand how sensitive students are, especially those who are low income, underserved, to the expectations they read in the behavior of pupil, faculty, and staff. And those behaviors convey expectations that they interpret as either reinforcing or challenging the stereotype. So listen to the voice, and I have here some videos of students speaking about their experience. Clearly, these are American students, and some of their language may be more dialectic and may be challenging for you, but I hope it helps. Here's one person talking about what happened in his very first class in the college in which he just started.
When I came in, I had several teachers that would tell me, at the beginning, the first day in their class, you're starting out with an A. Don't lose your A. And that stuck with me. Okay. And even when I got in classes where the teacher didn't tell us that, my mind was stuck. I'm starting with an A, and I'm finna fight to keep this A. And when that stuck, I took every semester as a challenge. And then in every class, I'm starting out with an A, and I'm not gonna lose it.
Got it? You listen to the voices of your students, and he's very clear. That simple comment by that faculty, person, teacher in the first semester changed his view of what he can do. And now he treats it very seriously. By the way, you notice his gold rings? I'd love to have that, the gold rings. But of course, there are a lot of stereotypes we all have, and certainly in the United States, about who can succeed and who cannot. And I said that students are very sensitive to those stereotypes. For example, that women can't do science or math. My wife's a mathematician. Or that students of color could not succeed in this field. There are stereotypes, and students have often internalized that stereotype as they grow up. Fortunately, it's changing, slowly. And the question is, how do you challenge that stereotype? Not just from one teacher or staff member telling a person, I expect you to succeed, but how do you challenge it? In fact, there's a lot of good research, and recently at the University of Texas, there's researchers called Yeager and Walton. If you ever request the article based upon this work, I cite those people. They have used in what we call orientation, which is that period just before the beginning of the semester. You might call it pre-onboarding. Maybe it could be a day or 2 days. You come to showing students video images of their teachers on their staff. A person of color being a top administrator, a woman running a science laboratory, directing a science laboratory. And the research shows it actually does begin to influence the sense of what's possible. Why? Because those images not only say it's possible, but it shows there are role models that they can follow, because if those people have done it there, I could do it there as well. And a lot of the students we have don't have those role models. They have no what's called cultural capital at home. They don't have that. So even those little video images can be very effective, but also can be the experience they hear from alumni. And I know that's what Penile Brem, she's working on a project trying to use alumni from the vocational programs who graduated from the college, who are in the occupation, to come and talk about how they've gone about this. And so we have vegetal. But it's also the notion, the stereotype students have, especially those who've struggled in the past, they have their first poor test, or they get an assignment they can't finish, and they go, here I go again. Oh, it's going downhill. I know I can't do this. We've learned you have to normalize, you know the term to normalize? The experience of new students. The challenge is, students, when they struggle like that, they think they're the only one. And often they say, it's my fault, right? The fact is, those struggles are common among the first-year experience. That's what all students end up doing in the adjustment process. So we are really worried about having students redefine what their struggles mean and not internalize it as reinforcing the stereotype. That's what we call normalization of struggle. And students will think, oh, it's not my fault, it's Professor Tinto's fault. No, wait a second. So that's an important notion because students don't understand what the experience of college is like because they have no cultural capital by which to judge that. And we really worry and spend a good time trying to say, this is what the first year is like. This is what getting a degree is like. You will have hills and you'll have valleys, but that's what it's like. In fact, often you learn best from your failures, but that's another story. So we worry about that, and we raise those expectations. So expectations matter. Self-efficacy matters. But of course, it is the case that more than a few students have reason to be concerned about their ability to succeed. They don't have the academic skills. So one should not ignore, it's not simply here, it's the fact they don't have some of those skills. So we invest a lot in academic and social support programs, right? And you have it in terms of career counseling, you have study counselors, right? Well, we do a lot of that. And again, given our structure, we can spend a lot of time in that in the first semester. So some students are required to take certain courses if they don't meet the academic standards of the university. So many universities and colleges will admit people not far down, but just within reach, but not at the dividing line. And we give them programs. We admit them under the premise that if you take these programs, you will then be admitted fully. In some cases, those programs run in summer. They're called summer bridge programs. They may be 2 weeks before the beginning of the year. In some cases, they be seminars in the first semester. It could be 4 weeks. It could be the first semester. And there are also courses called student success courses, which are all academic support. But also we learned that for students to use academic support, you have to contextualize it. Let me explain what I mean by that. Typically, for most of the time the universities have been running, what you have are learning centers. So a student would leave class, go to a learning center, get an appointment, and talk to some support person. I need help in this course. And that person may not be related to the course at all. They give you some generic skills. Those types of support are much less effective than those supports that are called contextualized or actually connected to the very class in which students are struggling. So we have, you've heard this before, we have a range of programs that are actually embedded in the classroom, support is embedded in it, or connected to it. One of the more popular ones is called Supplemental Instruction. Anybody heard that term before? It's pretty common in London, in England, in Sweden, at Lund University, L-U-N-D. They're really good at this. What it is this. Okay, there it is. You have a course, we call it, just for the sake of argument, it's Business 102. And students who are struggling are required to come to a supplemental study group. If it's a big class, you could have 2 groups. And typically the groups will be 8 to 10 students together. And they'll have a tutor who may be another student who's in their last year who knows the material. They'll tutor these students in groups, but it's not the tutor telling the students how to do their problems. It's helping the students working in cooperative groups to do the problems together. And the tutor will coordinate with the instructor of that course to make sure that tutor knows what each class requires, one class at a time. So it's a type of support which is literally connected to the class. Typically, these study groups occur just before class or just after class. Because like a lot of your students, like almost all your students, most of our students commute. They can't wait around 2 hours for a support group. This is what a person has said about this.
Well, thankfully, AMP has an SI, the student instructor, and what she does is it's a student who previously took the class, aced it, and knows this professor, this class, and you get together once a week, twice a week sometimes, and you go over the material that's been discussed in class, and anybody can come to it. And so I got to meet a lot of great people doing that, and we formed our own study group on top of that one just to help us out a little bit more, but it has really saved me big time.
Saved me big time. You know, she said something interesting. She said, we also have formed groups which support each other. This is a very common phenomenon if you're doing cooperative teaching correctly. That's a big term, correctly. So these group students then form friendships within that group, and they end up helping each other, right? So we do that. I should point out something else. Down, boy. We also are worried about when support should be given. We have been very concerned about identifying students early enough during their struggles to intervene to make a difference. Because if you wait too long, student motivation is already declining. So we've developed what's called, you've heard this term, early warning systems or early alert systems. You have that here? Yeah, we are very, very aware of it. What we do is try to identify, because remember, we have a semester, maybe 15 weeks. We try to identify in the first 4 weeks, 3 weeks, students who are struggling, and then get to them immediately with support. Because if you wait too long, it's too late, right? So the question is, how do you identify who those students are? So there's a whole new technology. You've heard this predictive analytics? Americans love technology, even when it doesn't work. But there are a whole set of sophisticated programs using information about students when they enter and keeping track of their grades or assignment grades, and based upon analysis of their prior characteristics and their grade performance, suggesting who needs help right away. It's not the ideal system, but given that it's hard for teachers to keep watching each individual student, it works. And the secret of why these early systems work is because they're early. Another complex theoretical conclusion. Okay, so those are things we're doing to deal with self-efficacy. And you got that one. Now, I should say the other thing, which is probably closer to what you are doing, or some colleges are doing, we literally embed the support in the classroom. This is from the state of Washington. It's a program called iBest. I'm not sure why they named it that way. But here, and these are for community college vocational technical programs, which are closest to what you do. Here, the instructor and the counselor will work together in the classroom. They'll team teach. So all the lessons will contain some component of how you develop the skills and apply them to the content. So it's literally, the students cannot avoid it. It's in fact obligatory if you come to class. Other cases, the counselor will become a partner with the instructor, and they will work together after class or before class to plan how the class would go. But again, the point is you embed it in the classroom so students cannot avoid it. Now, why the classroom? Well, like your students, if you follow commuting students, low-income commuting students, when you literally watch them when they travel through the campus, when they come to the campus, what's the first place to go to? The classroom. And when class is over, where do they go next? Home, work. So literally for many students, the only time they're engaged in any learning activity is where? Classroom. So for us, and for me personally, the classroom becomes a centerpiece for how you intercede and promote student motivation. Because it's the one place you hope you can find them. Right? And what does that mean about the role of the instructors? Okay. Sense of belonging. How are we doing? Good. Oh, a lot of time. Okay, quickly. Sense of belonging is the perception that students have that results from their engagement with others that tells them they matter and belong. I'm not trying to repeat this. Let me be clear. It's not engagement per se that matters. Now, we have all these fancy studies of engagement, these questionnaires. It's not engagement that really matters. It's a student's perception of the meanings they derive from those engagements, which are value-laden, cultural context. And that's what matters, that they come to see themselves as not simply being part of a group, but belonging in a way that their presence matters. Just being part of a group doesn't ensure your belonging. Oh, we'll let you in. Come on into the group. No, that you're committed and belong in a way that your participation matters. When students see that and perceive that, they feel they belong in a meaningful way. Now, there's many ways we do that, and this is not surprising to you. We worried about the pedagogies of engagement. And I mean structured engagement, not, the problem with cooperative teaching, people think they do cooperative teaching, but it's not really cooperative teaching. It's unstructured. You assign a group, you say, five of you students, I want you to do a paper together. You've done that. And what happens when you just say that to students? How many people do the paper? 1, 2, if you're lucky, right? But when you structure it, and you know how the cooperative teaching should work, people get roles, they get assignments, and they work together. When you do that, you find that's when people feel they belong because they're participating in the learning of the group, because their voice matters to the group. And then we have things like cohort programs. That is when people go through a program together, like a group, like you do in nursing typically. They follow the same curriculum. They know each other all the time. We have what's called learning communities that I've done a lot of work on, where students take 2 or 3 courses together as a community. I don't think that's probably likely and may not be likely in your programs. And then of course, we have things of student cultures and organization and groups, which some students, but not all, can avail themselves. But what you learn is when you're in those groups and your voice matters, you end up being more engaged in learning and you end up learning more. Here's a quote from a student in one of those cooperative groups structured so the voices mattered because each had to participate in the learning of their peer group. He says, the more I talk to other students about the class stuff, the homework, the test, the more I'm actually learning. That's good. Right? And the more I learn not only about the students, but also about the subjects, because my brain is getting more. That's a good idea, his brain. Because I'm getting more involved with the students in the class. You notice what this person's saying? That social engagement and meaningful mentorship, peer relations, drives their learning. So learning is both an academic, intellectual, and a social process. The two are connected. Right? But then he added to me, he said, Vince, I'm more involved with the class even after class. I was doing this qualitative work, and I said, Pedro, how could you say this class ends at 14:30? Oh, no, Tinto. Class continues. When we looked at what they were doing, what he meant was when they walk out of the classroom, they walk together in the group. And they talk about their assignments. They go to the tram or the metro, and they're in a group, within reason now. So they're literally spending more time learning, more time on task. Why? Because the group carries the learning with them, if the group is done well. Okay. So we also discovered, like that young lady who was talking about supplemental instruction, that these groups, done correctly, can be powerful support. Right? Support that the students can provide themselves that often you cannot yourself. You don't have the time, or you don't necessarily what support matters. Here's another person we interviewed in this study. Now, she had 2 jobs, 3 children, no partner in the house, and she had a commute by the subways of New York City. Anybody ever go to New York City, see those terrible subways? Have you been there? Your trams are like heaven compared to New York City. And just getting to the college at night was a successful endeavor that was a challenge. She struggled. She said, in the cluster, this group, we knew each other. We were friends. We discussed everything from all the classes. We knew things very, very well because we discussed it all so much. We had discussion about everything. And then she adds this metaphor. It was like a raft running the rapids of my life. So you think about providing social support, but if you organize the way they interact in learning environments, often, and you do it intentionally, not randomly, often support will emerge from it. And that's the support many students really need. All right? They share their stories. They share their struggles. It's not just me. We all have this issue. Okay. Go on. Oh, come on. Okay. Where are we now? Okay, good. I'm getting there. Finally, perceptions of relevance. Now, this is a complex topic. What relevance is varies by people, but at its very basis, it means students must perceive that the curriculum, what they're being asked to study as taught, pedagogy matters in this case. It's not being lectured at. It meaningfully applies to issues that concern or interest them, that the material is worth knowing, material that they want to know. Unfortunately, you get this. You've seen it before. What? Remember, I spent 7 years studying physics. I was going for a doctorate doing mathematics, and I said, why am I doing this? Okay, but that's a challenge. So the question is, how do you address this? Well, you know the answer to this already, because that's your field in vocational technical programs. You have to make, first of all, you have to make explicit why some of the basic courses matter. We have these social science courses, and people say, why am I studying history? I'm a chemist. And the instructor hasn't not made it clear why they should be worried about history. And that's the instructor's responsibility. But you can do that by the way you structure the course. But also, as Pernille Brems, is that right? Correct pronunciation? Pernille Brems? Yeah. She's using alumni from I'll repeat myself, from the same college who are actually in the industries. And we'll talk about what they've learned as it applies to their successful doing masonry, doing business administration. So having students hear that from people who've been through it is very important. 2 minutes? Ooh, 2 minutes. But that's for 30 minutes, right? We still, yeah. Right, okay. Then we have to obviously learn by doing. You know that. That's the virtue of problem-based learning if you do it well. And that's why you have structured programs. That's not surprising to you. But you have to be very clear that students have to see why it matters. And it's more convincing when alumni, and that's really creativity of that project, when alumni can explain to them in a realistic way, it does matter, because someone's doing it already. I'm not being told it matters. I'm listening to someone who says to me, it does matter. Okay. Closing thoughts. Ooh, finally. Improving persistence does not arise by chance. It's not because we intend goodness. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Is there a Danish version of that? Yeah? a result of an intentional, structured program involving a range of people and programs who work together in a coordinated fashion. The word coordination is very important. That sometimes people working here and there, they're not talking to each other. When you coordinate, the sum is greater than the individual parts. And they use data to identify what the issues are and evaluate solutions. One conclusion. We know it matters, but you have to get the data first. 2, the best time to promote student success and motivation is at the beginning. This is a complex idea. And the sooner the better. I would say even before the first year begins. I think there's a real virtue of focusing on some sort of pre-onboarding experience that gets them ready to think about these things. And finally, to do all that successfully, you have to see the institution through the eyes of your students. Hear their voices, take their voices seriously, and use their voices to help think about how do we use their experience to promote their motivation. Yeah, Doc. Yeah. Now, Now, Jens back there has made me stand on the stage because they're doing the video of this. So Jens, don't get angry. I'm going to come down off the stage. Is that okay, Jens? No, don't shake your head. Now we're going to talk to each other. We have how many more minutes left?
15.
15, good. I don't like spending all the time doing this. I'd rather have you do this. So as Susanna did for you, I want you now to turn your chairs around and talk to people behind you. Because if you talk to people next to you, you already know those people, right? So turn the chairs around. You can do that. This group, that group. Turn your chairs around. It's hard work, physical training, right? Now, bir dakika, that's Turkish, right? The first thing you do is introduce yourselves to each other. You know, who am I, what college I come from, and what do I do besides cause trouble? Then, oh, I love it. Then, I want each of you on your own to say to yourself, what a great presentation. Brilliant. No. Is there something I would like to ask about? Or some issue which I disagree or I'm clear about? I want each of you to think about that, and within 15 seconds, you share that question or concern with the other people around you. And then, as a group, try to come to at least one statement or question you would like to ask, all of us together. I'm not the only one to answer these questions. And I'll try to take as many questions as we can in the time we have left, okay? Because we all learn better together. Got it? Go. Okay, I'm afraid I have to put an end to this conversation. Really, I wish you can just let you keep talking so I wouldn't have to do any more work. I hope these conversations continue. That's the point of this. A conference is only good as what happens after the conference. So I'd like to hope that these conversations will continue with people you haven't met before. But for now, I want to try to have us talk about or answer the questions you have. So which group would like to start with a question? And who's going to be the runner? Yeah, the runner with the orange-pink shoes. I love those. Which group would like to start with a question? Yeah, please, back there. And please introduce yourself to me, please. And to everyone else, of course.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm from EVA, the Danish Evaluation Institute, maybe in English. We talked about you talked a lot about the student's voice.
Yeah.
We have to listen to the students.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good point. But it can be...
Next question.
It can be difficult.
But anytime
I mean,
there's a
how
but,
do you do it? How do you?
That's the challenge.
How do you? You can always ask them, but how
Yeah.
do you use their point of?
Yeah. Let me put you some context why we think everybody should be concerned, but us in particular, because our history of racism and homophobia. And we felt if we really wanted to include students of color in a meaningful way that would value their presence on our campus, we ought to hear what they say about it. So that's part of the context that provides our specific interest. The way you do that, I guess I can talk to qualitative researchers or quantitative researchers. Clearly, two students could experience the same event and they come out with different impressions. That's a challenge. But when you look at it overall, certain themes emerge from those interviews that seem to represent a more commonly shared, similar understanding. And that's where you start, because you can never solve and answer every particular person's concern as a policy matter, right? But you can try to reframe the structure and the performance of the organization to address the major themes that arise in student conversations. That's a challenge, saying what themes do we see emerge and what, for now, we cannot address. But once you open up the conversation for students, that changes their perception of their place in the college as well. Right? That's the best I can say. There's never, the only other solution is you interview every individual student and you respond to every individual student's needs, and that's not possible. Does anyone else like to respond to that question or have a different point of view? Please. It is a very complex problem. But of course, when we have such diverse student populations, we got to make sure each population is represented in that discourse. Okay. Another question or issue or statement? Don't be shy. Yeah? Was there someone else here? No? Okay. Let me just reinforce what Christina said at the beginning. You have my email. If you have questions you want to ask me, please email me. I have an Apple computer, it works. I also have stock in the Apple Corporation, so I just want to let you know. But for us, it's get a shared conversation. And these issues we discussed today are not new to you. Maybe they just reaffirm what you already know and what you're learning from people like Christina and her colleagues. Let me make an observation about my impression of the first course, the 20-week course. One of the things that's happened finally in the United States, instead of doing change piecemeal, we add this little program to the first year. We add this little program to the first year. A number of people with support from a foundation have gotten about 35 colleges and universities together. It's called Reimagining the entire first year. And the process is to completely redesign from scratch what the first year will be like if its purpose was to promote student success in the first year and enhance their motivation to succeed. And that's exactly what's been going on for about 5 years now. They say it's not just adding on, attach something to the existing structure will not solve the structural problem. So we need to redesign it completely. Well, is the first year program a given? Can it be restructured? For example, one of the things they're determining in first year programs is that it's necessary for teaching staff and counselors to work together as colleagues, so that they work together on behalf of the students in the classroom and not keep them separate in different little fiefdoms. There's the instructor fiefdom with the castles and the moats and the crocodiles, and there's the counselor fiefdom right? With the coffee houses and all that. So you redesign not only the structure, but the relationship of the people, because we all work better when we coordinate our actions. Finally, what's the theme of this? Listen to this last video.
It's really, really like a community. And, you know, the old saying is it takes a village to raise a child. Everybody in the village is helping out. And it goes from, you know, deans, president, down to career services, people in student life. And I think that they do just a phenomenal job of making you feel like you want to be a part of this.
That's what you want for your students. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Og så er vi ved at være nået til afslutningen af dagen. Og hvis vi lige kan samle op på det aller sidste her, som Mr. Tinto sagde, så er det i hvert fald noget af det, som jeg har hørt i en af de workshops, jeg var i, netop det her med tværfagligheden. Samarbejdet og snitfladen mellem, hvad er det vejlederne laver, hvad er det lærerne laver, og måske opløse ideen om, at det er helt forskellige ting, men at det er det samme, begge grupper har fokus på. Så ja, tak for i dag. Jeg føler selv, at jeg har styrtet rundt, men det er min opfattelse, at I har haft en god dag. Jeg har i hvert fald haft en rigtig god dag, og jeg synes, det har summet af aktivitet. Ikke bare i sessionerne, men også der, hvor det også virkelig gælder, når man er på konference. I pauserne, altså der, hvor man har lejlighed til faktisk at tale sammen. Og det er skønt at se, at der sker så meget. Her, da vi havde den sidste snak lige herinde, der sagde Tinto også, jeg kan næsten ikke stoppe dem, fordi det ser ud som om, at nu sker der virkelig noget. Nu er de engageret og sidder og snakker sammen. Så det er skønt at slutte med det indtryk. Så vil jeg lige give et par praktiske informationer. Vi kan, som jeg nævnte i starten, sende slides til jer på baggrund af deltagerlisten, medmindre I udtrykkeligt giver udtryk for, at I ikke vil have dem. Så er der 10-15 stykker, som ikke er på vores lister, som er kommet til sidenhen. Hvis I er interesseret i slides, så skal I skrive til Susanne. Har vi din mailadresse? Står. Nå, altså helt old school skriver jeg på en liste. Ja. Hvis I gerne vil have slidesene, så sørger vi for at få dem sendt til jer. Så er jeg blevet spurgt om rapporten. Den er ikke helt skrevet færdig endnu, men den er lige på trapperne. Så omkring årsskiftet, så skulle vi gerne kunne lægge en rapport på vores hjemmeside, som, hvor vi beskriver metoden og teorierne og alle resultaterne. Og vi vil prøve at bygge den op, sådan, så man ikke behøver at læse den fra ende til anden, men man måske kan springe ind der, hvor man synes, man har lyst, og hvor man synes, det er rigtig spændende. Så endnu en gang, og på vegne af hele holdet, tusind tak for i dag. Nej, nu er der en finger. Undskyld. Jeg tænker bare, at vi laver en samlet pakke, medmindre I melder tilbage. Ja, jeg havde ikke, den information fik jeg nemlig først lige før vi gik på her. Så alles godt. Tak for i dag.